Alright, so I've decided to extend this series just a slight bit and talk about multiple levels. In order to really pull this off, we're going to need to kind of regress here a little bit. We're not going to take the function here out of the game completely, but we are going to be removing the power up for the time being. So we can go ahead and just delete that. We have it saved as a prefab. If we ever do want to just drag it right back in, we can simply go in here and just go like that, and it'll be back into action. But for now, we are going to be removing it because today we are going to be talking about creating multiple levels, and we're going to start working on this right now. So if you remember right, we go back here into the house over here at the end, and we have this little thing called the scene change script. Now this script right here already has the power to move us to a second level. So let's start to talk about this. Let's start talking about creating a second level, ways to scale this up, and start really working at it. So if we go over here and we go to our scenes, and then we go over here and we go to the sample scene, which is what we have right now, you'll see that we only have these two scenes right now. So let's actually mess with this a little bit and click File, Save Scene As, and we'll be able to create a new scene in here with everything that we've already built in it. So let's go ahead and create this as the second scene, right? Just so that has a name that makes sense to us. Now, in order for us to go to another scene, as we've shown with the ending before, we have to go to our build settings. So File, Build Settings. Once you open it up, you'll have something that looks just like this, and you'll be able to drag your second scene right up into the top there, and we'll actually have it just like that. And then it'll become scene number 2. So here's where things get a little bit more interesting. If we go into the scene change right here, and we write down second scene, and then we hit the play button, and then we realize that our power-up is no longer there and we can't make it through the level. So we go to our player, we go to the rigid body, and we start to mess with this stuff. We're going to up the jump force to, let's say, like 25 or so, and keep the speed about the same, I guess. And you see, we go over here, and because we copied the same exact scene, it starts us back over instead of a scene very much like our original one. And the thing is, when we copied it, it already had that second scene set up on there, so it keeps on repeatedly putting us in the second scene, as you can see there when we get to the end. Now, because nothing's getting moved from scene to scene, so it's starting over as if it's a new scene every single time. Now, if I go back to the sample scene, and I click on the same house over there, you'll see that that's still set up on the end. So, what we want to do here is go... We're going to move this to the second scene here on the sample scene, right? Which is the scene that we've been using all along. And then we're going to go to our second scene over here, and we're going to start making our new level. So, if we go over here to where it says level, we go to where it says foreground, and we open up our tile palette, we can start to actually erase things and start making a whole new level. And except for I'm erasing the background for some reason. So I'm going to play this in fast forward as I build up a quick level for us to test this through. You guys should understand how to do that by now. Okay, so I've developed my second level here, and I call it second scene, right? So if we go back into our other scene, our sample scene that we've been using all along, and then we have it set over here for the second scene, and we play it through really fast, what will happen is... And now we have a second level, just like that. But right away, we're starting to see that we have some problems. I'll start pointing them out now. So I collect some cherries. And I get here in our second scene, our cherries are set back to 0. We don't want that, of course. That's no bueno. And in order to keep something going, like, it's very easy for us to keep on putting player into a new scene and the camera into a new scene because we can just make prefabs, all those things. But to carry on our score from one screen to the other is an issue, right? So let's start talking about that. So there are a lot of ways to go about this, but the way that we're going to go about it is a little bit, well, anytime that we get this deep into making a game, it gets a little messy. And we can always clean it up, we can make it nicer, we can reprogram some things, but we don't really want to, not unless it's causing performance issues or where it's going to cause us future issues. But in terms of this and the workflow that we got for this game, we don't want to go too much more into like remaking things and stuff. But we are going to need to do it a little bit here, minimally. We're going to do some minimal surgery, so to speak. And if we go into our player controller, we can start to see where it is. Because there are two things inside of here that we want to carry on from one part of the game to the other, right? And that is cherries and health. Those are two things that get updated to the UI, and those are two things that get changed a lot. And we can see that the corresponding text mesh pro stuff is cherry text and health amount, right? Alright, so in truth, we actually never really want to get rid of our player UI. It's the one thing that kind of gets carried over from one screen to the other. So let's go ahead and actually use that to our advantage. Let's make a new script onto the player UI, and it's going to be called permanent UI or something like that. It doesn't really make a difference. Names don't really matter as long as they mean something to you and whoever else you work with. So we're going to open up our permanent UI script. We're going to hope that I spelt it right, because it's going to be really embarrassing if I didn't. And we're going to go in here and start messing with some things. So we know already that we have two things that we really want to do inside of here. We want access to from the player controller, and that is cherries and health. And what we're going to do actually is we're going to get completely rid of them inside of here, and we're only going to have them inside of our permanent UI, right? So this is actually going to keep track of both of those stats for us. So we're going to call them player stats. And then we will simply take the private int cherries, like so, and the private int health. Immediately we have some problems. Like, of course we can make this public, and that would be awesome. And we may even need to do that, but the problem is that we have actually a new player object inside of every scene that we make. So when he goes from the sample scene right here into the second scene, it's automatically it's a different player actually. We're trying to mimic him and make him as similar as possible. But when he goes from this scene right here to the second scene, it's actually a whole new player. And that whole new player needs to get all of his scripts set up the same way. So if we go into the player controller, all these variables need to get set up again, which is okay in a lot of cases. Better just to point it out here inside the game. So if we go here, you see that cherry count needs to get set back up, and health amount needs to get set back up. All this stuff needs to get set back up every time. And if it's already set up inside the scene, it's fine. But if it's got to get reset up, it's a problem, because it can't automatically do it if it's not already set up in the scene. So I'll show you what I mean here, because I know that's very confusing. So if we go to the second scene and we go into the player, he's already set up inside of this, but once we get rid of the player UI in here, because we're going to make the other one permanent and carry it from one scene to the other, we're going to go into our player here, and we're going to immediately see that there's some problems. There's a missing text mesh pro UGUI, and there's a missing health amount text, right? So in order to fix this, we really need to be able to carry that from one scene to the other, right? We really need that to be automated. We need the player to automatically be able to find those things. So we got to keep that in mind as we're going about this. So let's also look into cherry count and health amount being inside of our new script. So if we simply copy this over, we get our cherry text, and we get our health amount. Now it's giving us an error right here, so let's, for our first challenge of the day, let's see if you can fix these errors. Alright, so the errors are simply because we're not using the right namespaces up here, and you can just simply go into your player controller and you can copy the ones over. In this case, it's these two right here. And then we can go up here and hit enter and simply paste them. And both of those errors go away. So I'm serializing these fields. I probably should just copy them over when I copied and pasted. And now we got both of those available. Do we need the cherries and the health also inside of here? No, because they're more We don't really need access to them inside of the inspector. I probably should have already taken that out a while ago. And I think we start off with what, 5 health? I think we've been doing 5 health. So this fixes one of the problems. We now have these variables inside of here. Now, the next real big issue here is that we don't have access to permanent UI inside of all the scenes because it doesn't exist in those scenes yet. This is something that only exists inside of our first scene right now. So if we go through this and we start to think about that, we realize that we need one version of this between all our scenes. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use something called a singleton pattern. We're going to create a private, actually let's make a public static permanent UI. Now what static means is this is a variable that actually belongs to the class itself versus the instance. In other words, this variable is something that everything can get access to because it's permanent inside of everything, but because it's only one of them, because it belongs to the class itself, you can't just make an instance of it. So every time there's an instance of it, it doesn't make a new one. And I know that's not going to make sense to a lot of you, but I'm hoping there's like 5 of you out there that got that. Just know that this thing's important and it works a little bit differently, and you're going to start to see that here in the future. So public static permanent UI, let me just call it perm, it doesn't really make a difference. And then we're going to go void start. And inside of our start function here, we're going to say if no permanent UI, or no, if no perm, then perm equals this, right? Else destroy game object. So what this does here is if this permanent UI, if this doesn't have anything to it, if it's null, it will automatically make it into this right here. But if it does exist, in other words, else, it actually destroys the entire game object this is attached to. The reason why we just destroy it is because it shouldn't exist in the first place. There should only be one UI. This is what's called a singleton pattern. It makes it so that this thing can only exist once and that you can only have access to it once, right? So what's great about this right here is that it gives us access to this perm all over the place. So we can start to get these stats from these other places. Now, next problem is that we've only got these on the private right now because originally they were only supposed to be controlled by the player controller, but now that we're going to need access to them from the permanent UI to the player controller, we're going to need to make these public, which completely takes off our need for these serialized fields. I don't know what I was thinking when I made those. And that will give us access to them all over the place here. So let's start to use this. So if we go into our player controller here, we can start to delete these old variables that we had before. So we delete those two right there. Then we delete also the health and the health amount right there. Now immediately that gives us a bunch of errors, which is good. That lets us know where we were using all of our stuff before. So if we save this real quick, we go here into the health amount, and then we can go to, so we go permanent UI dot perm dot health amount dot text equals health dot toString. So we again go to permanent UI dot perm dot health equals toString. So we just put this part right here in front of every variable that we had before. So what this does is it goes to this class and then it accesses the static variable because this variable belongs to the class itself. We can access it like this, and because it's a public class and a public static variable, we can access this as if it is a variable, like we've been doing with all these other things, right? A good example of this is the input class that we've been using throughout this series, where we say input.get key down and stuff like that. That is also a class that has static methods actually. So in here you see that we can actually do all sorts of cool stuff with this now. We can use the class itself, the variable that gives us the exact permanent UI, the one permanent UI inside of our game, and we can start to use that. So now if we just copy this beginning right here, we can actually start to paste this into all the parts that we had our other variables in before, and as you can see, everything is being done inside of here still, but for our other object. So theoretically now this should actually work because, well, at this point we've got everything set up outside of this class. cleaning us up quite a bit. Oh, and I forgot to paste this onto this bottom part right here. So, of course, as errors pop up, we're going to need to go back here and just simply paste in everything, and then we save again. It might give us more errors, but that's okay. Go back into our game here, and it seems to have all cleared, which is good. And now the permanent UI has a bunch of variables inside of it, so let's go ahead and do this. And if we go over here and we drag over our cherry count into our cherry text, and then we drag over our health amount into our health amount, we now have a system that's been set up completely here and is working like it used to work. And then we run all the way to the end of this game, and we get to the next scene, and we have no UI at all, and we have some null references and stuff, which is no bueno. So what happened? Well, if we go over to our player UI, it just didn't exist in the second scene at all. So to make it exist inside the second scene, we need stuff to actually carry over from one scene to the other. Now, we fixed the problem that things wouldn't function right before if we did carry it over. So all we have to do now is add to our permanent UI one simple thing. So down here we go singleton, so that is, we know what that is going on down there. We know what's going on down there. Wow, I need to work on my English. So now we just need to actually make it so that this thing does not get destroyed between scenes. And as you see here, we have don't destroy on load. That is the method that we want to use. It needs a game object to take in, so you just simply write in game object. We'll, of course, use the game object that this component is attached to. And once again, we have the system all set up. As you see here on the left, we have don't destroy on load. Actually there, it's actually its own separate scene. And if we run all the way here to the end, we'll get over here and boom, our UI is carrying over. I don't know why it starts on 0. Alright, I'm going to change that to 5 just so I don't have to worry about that for now. Now, there's going to be a new problem that pops up with this. And if we run the game again, I can show it to you real quick. We collect some cherries and we fall off the world, and boom, we still have those cherries. Now, if that's by design, by all means, that's great. But if it's not by design, then we have an issue, right? Because you can infinitely collect cherries this way, theoretically. Now, some of you might actually like that because you can also mess with your health this way, and if we have the fall reduce our health every time that we're resurrected, and then we have if the health hits 0, then we actually just end the game completely, or something like that, some kind of system like that, then by all means this works for us. But if not, then we need to have those cherries reset, right? Now, one of the benefits of having a permanent static variable that controls all of our stats inside this game is that we can access it inside of any class. So if we go over here to our fall script, for example, we can see inside of here that there's this place where we can tell if the player has fallen down into the fall, right? So as a challenge to you guys, let's see if you can figure out how to make it so that this variable right here actually resets the cherry count for the player as well. Alright, it's actually pretty simple. If you go to permanent UI dot perm dot cherries equals 0. And just like that, we've reset the cherry count to 0 when we fall. So if I hit the play button, get some cherries, and then I fall, we now only have 0 cherries when we fall, right? Now, the problem is our UI is also not updating before we pick up a cherry, because it only updates when we pick up a cherry right now. So let's go ahead and fix that while we're at this. You know what? Instead of doing it this way where we have the fall run this way, we're going to actually create a method. We're going to call it public void reset, right? And this reset method is going to set our cherries to 0. It's going to set our cherry text back to cherries dot toString. Oh, dot text, sorry. Make sure to add the dot text after cherry text. Alright, so this is what the reset's going to do for us. So if we go back to fall, and instead of making permanent dot perm dot cherries equals 0, we're actually going to just go and do permanent UI.perm.reset there. And that should fix us up so that we don't longer have to worry about it getting all messed up, right? There we go. And as you can see, the cherries now gets reset to 0 for us. Perfect. Alright, so I took out the ending to the game now, so you've got 2 levels now inside of there. Let's create either create a 3rd level at this point as a challenge. Either create a 3rd level or create the reconnect it to the ending. That's your new challenge. Alright, so if we go over here to the second scene, and we go over to where this golden light is at, or whatever you guys did for yours, I know I didn't really show you how to do this, then you go to, I'm just going to add a collider onto this, so we can go ahead and say collider. If we just type that in, we'll get a bunch of stuff. It's going to say collider 2D. I'm actually going to edit the shape of this because I actually want him to go into the light a little bit before it all comes to an end. And we're going to go to about there. We're going to turn it into a trigger, and we're going to add a component to this. It's going to be, actually I can't even think of the name of the script right now, so let's go ahead and look through all our scripts. In fact, while we're at it, let's just shift select all of our scripts inside of our assets and move them to our scripts folder. It's about time for that. We're going to go back into our scripts folder. We see a scene change thing here. We're going to call this the light. The light. Good, all caps, baby. And then we're going to add a component called scene change onto this. I'm going to put it back to the end, and that's going to be it. I'll save the scene, and now we'll go back to our first scene, our sample scene here, and we'll play through. And it'd help if I could beat my own game. Oh. At last! Went off into the light. So as you can see, we are all the way through here to the end. At last, we made it home. Our poor foxy friend. It's happened. So why are we still getting this error? Hold on, guys. We're getting an error. Huh, it's only popping up at first, so I think it's just that the scripts aren't running at the right order, which is alright. So you know what? I guess we can talk about that real quick too. So sometimes scripts don't run in the order that you want them to. Right now we want the player UI to run first because the variables inside of here are being used inside the player controller. So if you go to Edit, Project Settings, and then Script Execution Order, we can go in here and actually start to mess with what order these things are at. And we want to go in here and add in permanent UI, and we're going to make this into we'll make it -10, right? And we'll apply that. And what this will do is it'll make it so this thing is actually happening before this stuff that's forward. Now a lot of these things are just like at the default time here, but this will make it so that our permanent UI is loaded up before a lot of other scripts. So if I hit play again, hopefully that fixes the error that we've been getting. And it's true, I'm no longer seeing that error. So a lot of times when stuff is functioning correctly and you know that that variable exists and everything like that, you have to go in there and mess with the script execution order. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I really hope that you liked the video. I'm trying not to do too many more videos in this series. I really like the idea of it being complete and being done, but at the same time I felt like multiple levels was a thing that you just kind of need in order to make a platformer game. I don't know why I didn't really fully explain it the first time. Anyway, let me know though if there's something else that's like really needed. I know some people, there was one guy that was wanting some cherry animations, like an animation for when you pick them up. I'm thinking about doing that maybe. I know another guy was asking about ladders and, like, you know, being able to climb things. I'm thinking about doing that one just to add some variety to the level. So maybe I'll make a level 3 real quick and added onto that. But for now, I just really wanted this video to be about the multiple levels themselves. So I hope that explained it really well. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Leave me a comment. Comments are by far the most helpful out of everything I just said. I mean, nobody visits the video if you don't like and subscribe it, but eh. It was really like the comments that like let me like know what you're actually thinking and stuff. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Alright, thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day.